In my last video, I was talking about the nervous system and these kind of two different states that I kind of liken as dials, with the rest digest, or that parasympathetic, the kind of easy going, joke cool, like I'm kicked back, I'm relaxed state. I can eat well, digest well, sleep well, work well. That's a really nice state to be in, compared to the other dial, which is that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn state. This is the state that a lot of us tend to live in anymore, and it can feel really challenging, and it requires patience and kind of re-tonifying or shifting the nervous system away from that state, because those that sympathetic, or that kind of high octane go 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 state, it's there for your protection. So just know that it's not wrong, whichever state you find yourself in. It's not wrong, and it's really common to course in and out of states, on any given day. So I wanted to elaborate though on that sympathetic, or that kind of go 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 dial, okay? Because there's four states that I tend to think of when it comes to that particular system, nervous system, part of your nervous system. So fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I've said this kind of multiple times. So the fight is it's exactly probably what it sounds like, right? Your dukes are up. This is like the fiery state. You're just kind of like, you're just kind of pissed off. You may be agitated, angry, or quick to anger. You're frustrated, and you might be outward with other people, where you snap at your kids or your spouse, or you're inward and you can just feel your blood pressure boiling, or you're like going home on your way home from work and you're just kind of like having this fight in your head with somebody about that thing that they said, and you just can't drop it. We all know what that feels like. And like I said, it's not wrong to be in that state, but it's also not comfortable. It's not super comfortable. Women especially have a very, I would say, tumultuous relationship with this kind of fight state, because, we've all kind of been trained or told like we're not supposed to be mad, or anytime we raise our voice, or, set a firm boundary out of frustration, then, we kind of get kickback. So this particular part of the nervous system, or this particular state of the nervous system, that fight mode, is very protective, but we also know it can be a little bit destructive. So it's just kind of helpful to notice, like, oh, I woke up madder than a wet hen and I am just frustrated, and that's the state of my nervous system. So sometimes kind of neutralizing it and saying, look, this isn't me being an obstinate person, or somebody who's defiant. This is a state of my nervous system, and I just need to listen to that. And kind of, there are practices that I'll offer for people, how to cool the jets, basically, right? Because there's a lot of heat. There's a lot of heat in the body and in the nervous system. There's a lot of energy, where sometimes we have to have cooling practice to be able to kind of slow our roll, kind of like gather ourselves, okay? So that's fight mode. Fight. Flight. Flight is really interesting. So in our society, if you haven't noticed, we love to overwork. We love to overdo and overcommit and strive. And this can be a really sneaky state, because I know for me, I was living in flight mode for a lot of my life and I didn't know it. And when I hit my mid-30s, I started to experience a lot of like kind of just deep felt resentment, and I was exhausted. I had headaches, and I had more difficult time sleeping. It was like Tuesday morning would roll around and I was already tired, and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get through the week? Because I was constantly going, right? And so, and also in our society, we tend to pride ourselves on exercise. Now, exercise is good. Exercise is good. But if it's out of balance and we're doing too much, if we're trying to hit the gym, get our 10,000 steps in, work a full day, go take the kids to sports practices, go stop at the store, go home, cook dinner, do dishes, and by the way, oh my gosh, I have yet to send those emails that I promised, and it's 9:30 at night. That's an example of flight mode. It's go, 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 right? And this is really exhausting. This is a very exhausting mode to be in. Now, part of you, or some of you out there might be saying like, how are you supposed to not be in that mode? Look at the world. And that's a really good question. It's kind of a rhetorical question of like, what are we supposed to do when we're finding ourselves in flight, right? Where we're maybe overcommitting, like maybe we don't have to be on every leadership team or every committee, or maybe we can, only choose one volunteer experience and not three or four. So there are some ways to kind of peel back on this, but I think point being, it's important to recognize when you're somebody who you say yes to a lot of things, or like achievement is kind of in your blood, where you feel like if you're not going to go to the nth degree or go the extra mile, then who even are you? So flight mode is really tricky when it comes to the population of people who are really good at what they do, like a lot of healers and healthcare practitioners. There's a lot of flight mode because, and I could say this was me for a long time, we were kind of trained that like, hey, you have to show up, by 7 a.m. You have to see all of the people. You have to be productive. You got to stay on top of it. And by the way, try not to take too much vacation, because that means then we're going to have a growing wait list, and we already have a big enough wait list. So like, if you can be here as much as possible, that'd be really helpful. It's no wonder we're all in flight mode, right? So I'll also give the example of, this concept of getting our steps in or getting our exercise, or, in the perimenopause, menopause conversations anymore. Like obviously we want women moving their bodies and developing, healthy bones and muscles for metabolic health. But one thing I've seen in my practice with women is that they are kind of exhausted, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I don't have the energy to do all of these workouts. And and so then it's like, what do you choose? What has to go? What do you say yes to? What do you say no to? And this is why this is a big conversation, right? But I think bare minimum, if you find yourself in this kind of like spin cycle, or this kind of go mode, that's the flight response, in that sympathetic or that stress response. So I know for me, I had to really have a good hard look in the mirror. I had to take a good hard look in the mirror to be able to say, I got to shift directions. Like my body is forcing me to. So I was one of those people that I had to really have an honest conversation with myself, my now husband, my colleagues, my boss. Like I had to shift gears. It wasn't going to be sustainable if I wasn't. So I was very much that kind of high achiever, goer. And then I would get done with a busy workday and attempt to work out. And I remember just kind of being like Forrest Gump, where I just like stopped running altogether. And mind you, I was a collegiate runner, a very successful one. And I just stopped. I just stopped dead in my tracks. And I was like, well, I think that's that. I couldn't do any more. And so I just noticed how my work life, my relationship with exercise and movement and working out, it was all just no longer functioning for me. It fell out of alignment. So flight mode is really sneaky, because that's where we start to see how it really affects our work and our relationship with working out. And then underneath that, our bodies. And this is a big topic, right? So I could say a lot more on that, but I think you get probably the gist. So be mindful of flight mode. Fight, flight, freeze. So freeze is an interesting state. Freeze is like, sometimes you can be functionally frozen, where you're just kind of going through the routine. You're just like kind of a little robot, and you're like, well, meh. You're just kind of feeling meh about it. And you're doing the same old thing, because you're like, I don't want to go backwards. I'd rather just stay in place, and I don't know where my next step is. I'm not sure where I'm going from here. So you're just kind of on this little like hamster wheel. And this might be more of like a spin cycle feeling. So you might be showing up for life, but you might just be feeling pretty like meh about it. A lot of times I describe the freeze as like, it just feels like your feet are in quicksand. Like you just have like sand in your butt. Like you just want to kind of be on the couch, and sometimes freeze is like literally like it's really hard to show up, so you don't. And you're just like literally just sitting there. Or again, functional freeze, where like you're showing up but you just don't want to, and you dread getting out of bed. So the functional freeze or the freeze state can feel really hard, because this is where there can be a lot of like confusion. Your mojo feels like it's just kind of gone by the wayside, and you're just kind of like, ugh. So with this is where earlier I mentioned with the flight mode, fight, Dukes up, that we sometimes have to have practices that kind of cool the jets and kind of cool the internal fire. With freeze, we have to kind of thaw. If we're just kind of like frozen, stuck in time, we have to have these thawing practices. And this is where it gets really fun, because we get to be creative on like, what does your nervous system need? Like, what's it been up to? Why is it sticking in that little zone? And how do we help kind of guide it out? And then lo and behold, you'll find that when we have thawing practices, then our mojo starts to come back. Our kind of internal fire starts to kind of come up again. Maybe we start to feel more intuitive. We start to take action. Like, good things happen when you thaw that frozen state. So fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawning is interesting. By the way, you might be in any one of these, and sometimes you're in a couple of these like states at the same time. Fawn is interesting, and I always think of a little sweet little deer, a fawn in the field pretending to, play dead. It's kind of fawning. Fawning is like the yes man. Sure, I'll do it. Like, kind of, you're gonna be the volunteer for everything. You're gonna say yes to everything, even though maybe not even deep down you're just like, I don't want to do this. And so I feel like with fawn, a very common sort of like internal flag is resentment. So I think that for me, for a long time, with my example of being kind of in go, go, go mode, I was also a fawner. I mean, I was saying yes to everything, including seeing patients over my lunch hour. It's no wonder I was tired. I wasn't even fueling my body well. Or just, elongating your day or starting your day earlier. So not delegating because you're like, I'm going to do this better, so I'm going to do it myself. So fawning is tough because then you're just kind of, it's like your plate is so robust. It's too much for one person to carry. And it can feel really kind of just hard and heavy and dense, and where it's like, it's really hard to feel grateful because you're just like, well, since someone else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. So it can feel like a really icky place to be, because in your heart of hearts, you're probably a really good human. You probably love to serve people. You probably are an empath and, sensitive, and you're just this beautiful human, but you've been sort of led astray, and, you've just learned. It's kind of a learned habit of just saying yes and doing the thing and showing up, even when you don't feel like you want to, but no one else is doing it. And you don't want to see the whole system fail. So, or see somebody else suffer because of, you not raising your hand. So, what a kind of can be a little wiggly process to kind of understand, why and when you started fawning, and then what do we do about that? And so there are some practices. This is where like boundaries come in, right? Whether it's energetic boundaries, maybe I'll talk about that in another video. Not maybe, I will. But really reestablishing your relationship with physical boundaries, energetic boundaries, emotional boundaries. And this is especially for all of you healers out there and healthcare providers, because I think a lot of us, I would say I'm a recovering fawner and flighter. A lot of us really struggle in those states. And so again, kind of back to my kind of personal story as an example, and maybe you see parts of yourself in this story, where we start to get really like heady. Everything we do, we're up here, up in our head. We're, not dropping into our breath and our body and tending to our needs enough. So this is where you can see that back to the dial, whether we're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, how kind of heavy and hard and dense and intense that sympathetic or that stress response can feel, and then how kind of dialed back that rest, digest, or feed and breed, that parasympathetic response can feel. And there's always ways to be able to kind of readjust and rebalance, because ultimately when we are in a position to kind of take the bold steps, do the brave thing that you have to do and should have done a long time ago, and you're just going to do it, ultimately you can retrain your body to live in that parasympathetic state again, because it's there for your taking. It just needs tended to and kind of nourished and nurtured, right? Where then that stress response can then be really primed up and tuned up for when you need it the most. So a lot to ponder there. Let me know if you have any questions, and yeah, enjoy getting to know your nervous system.